in the cars. We've got the Rosenspike. Kaim Uleftecha Baderech. Okay, we had machloikis about between Rabbi and Rav Chisda where we said lashon of hoyel or not. In other words, if you cook on Yontif for hoyel, Rav Chisda said you get malchus, and Rabbi says you don't get malchus. Says Rabbi, since hoyel of orchim would show up, you could cook on Yontif for orchim, therefore you say hoyel and you don't get malchus, and he disagreed. Rabbi and Rav Chisda disagreed, and he said what? He said you'd say hoyel. In addition, we had in our Mishnah, how we got into this, we had machlokas in Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. You have challah that became tamei. How in the world do you go ahead and bake it on Pesach? We had a big problem. You could go ahead to separate challah, right, and give it to the kohen. You can't because it's tamei. To burn it, separate it and burn it, you're not allowed to burn kachim or on yontif. To go ahead and wait till after yontif to burn it, it's going to become chametz. So what do? So Rabbi Eliezer had an eitzah. Rabbi Eliezer said you bake it and then you separate it after it's baked, and then you separate it after it's baked. Rabbi Yeshua said you have no problem. Said Rabbi Yeshua, you do normally. You go ahead, you separate the challah, you bake the matzah, and let the challah become chametz, and then you burn it in the evening. Why? Because this is a challah that you're not mitzvah by your by your matzah. It's not yours. It was mashma loit Rabbi Eliezer. It is yours because he said you'll be over by your matzah. You had an avneitzah. So we wanted to say they argue whether toivus hana is mammon or not, and we rejected that. And we said it really is. They're arguing since a person can go ahead and reject it. It could be your money because it could be shoyal on the truma on the challah. That was Rabbi Eliezer. Yeshua said no. That's what we have so far. Now the Gemara is going to suggest that the machlokes of hoyel between Rabbi and Rav Chisda is in fact machlokes tanoim between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, which I just introduced you. We're going to begin on Nes Amit Aleph, where the lines get wide. Count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down where the lines get wide. Amar Rami Bar Chama. The first words on the line are Bar Chama. Amar Rami Bar Chama. Had the Rav Chisda v'Rabba, the machlokes whether you say hoyel or not is machlokes the Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua. It's machlokes the Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. The Rabbi Eliezer sava amin and hoyel. Yeshua sava loy amin and hoyel. Now, what would the hoyel be over here? If you look at Rashi, says Rashi, machlokes Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua. He Rabbi Eliezer sava amin and hoyel. Afa pi the soifa lahafish achas mehem lechala. Even though in the end you're going to be mafish one of the matzahs that you bake and call it challah. V'nimsa shetarach bedava sheina roy la'achila, and nimsa you would tareach on yontif for something that you can't eat, which is not permitted on yontif. Afilu hachi amirin hoyel. What's the hoyel? The boy loy mafish chad l'chala ela botza mikol chad v'chada v'ikol meim b'chol chad v'chada le u'mutala faisa. In other words, what is he going to do? He has 10 matzahs. He's going to take one and give it to the kohen. Really, you could say that he's going to take a little piece from each every one of them. So since each and every one of them will roy to be cooked, why? Because you had matzah that you could eat, and you'll be mafish from each little one of them. Hoyel, since that possibility exists, I can even take it off one complete one, which I didn't have a right to do from the other 9. So that's Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer's hoyel would be, since I could bake them all separately and take off a little bit from one, and that would be okay. Who had been? If I bake 10, I take one away, it's okay. And Rabbi Yeshua obviously says, no, he would say hoyel. That's why he left. He said that you wouldn't say that eitzah, and therefore there's no eitzah except let it go ahead, become chametz, and there's no problem because it's not yours, and you're not mitzvah by your rabbi matzah. Amra Papa Vidilma, no, I could make a chilik. Ad kan like Rabbi Eliezer Hassam, where Rabbi Eliezer says hoyel only by archim. That means in hoyel ela de beidne de ka'ayel de tanura. Right? Why would I say hoyel over here? Why? Because each one is a shaykhs to him. Aval hacha dila archim hu the chazi. The food is for the guests. L'didei loy chazi. Ema hachanami d'loy amin hoyel. In other words, one is not locked into saying hoyel across the board. We saw at Taisus, the question, Maisha's question, Meis Mitzvah. If it's not shaykh klal, we don't say hoyel. It doesn't. So Rebbe Eliezer could be, I'll only say hoyel when I have a shaykhs to this. So I have a shaykhus to this matzah, and therefore I could go ahead and eat this matzah, and I can make it and separate the challah. Masha'en came by the orchim, where the whole cooking is for them and not for me. Maybe Rebbe Eliezer would not say such a hayal. So you're not locked into saying that what? That Rebbe Eliezer would agree with Rabbah regarding baking on Yontif. Amar of Shisha, the other way around. Amar of Shisha, of Idi, Dilma, Loihi. Ad kan like Rabbi Yeshua Hasam, Rabbi Yeshua, that by the separation of challah, that he lets it go ahead and become chametz by the separation of challah, that he lets it go ahead and become chametz. The loy amin hayal. You know why he doesn't say over there where you bake the matzah? Because one out of those 10 matzahs, one is not going to be seen. Not to him and not the orchim. Excuse me. Hasam Delayamin and Hayel over there by the orchim. In other words, right. I said it right. I'm sorry. One more time. When you bake the matzah, right, there's one matzah that no one's going to get. It's going to go to the kohen. It's going to be burnt. So therefore, you don't say hoyel over there. Masha'en kain, when you bake on yontif l'choyel, if an oireach would show up, he could eat it. Maybe Rabbi Yeshua would say hoyel. So we have two scenarios, guys. We have the scenario of baking from yontif to choyel, and we have scenario of going ahead baking tummy tikka bo linyan challah. We wanted to say one v'hava hatalia. I could say no. I could say the following: don't be locked in. Rabbi Eliezer would say hoyel over here, since you could bake in each and every one of them, and it's shaykh to him is very good. Mashen came by baking for yontif l'choyel, where it's not for him, it's only for orchim. Rabbi Eliezer would reject that and would not say the hoyel. Conversely, by that case, Rabbi Yeshua would say you don't say hoyel by that case. Why? Because no one's getting it. Over here, by our case, no one's getting it. You're not getting the matzah, and the Oreach's not getting the matzah, and the kohen's not getting the matzah. No one's getting it. Mashenkin over there, by the case of baking from Yontif l'choyel, where an Oreach could get it, maybe Rabbi Yeshua would hold the hoyel. That's the. There's a lot of Rashi on this and a lot of Torah on this. We're going right there. I figured I have to tell you that. There's a lot of stuff of it. There's kashas and terutzim, but it's Erev Shabbos and we're going right. Says the Gemara. Amru Rabbanon kamed Rav Yirmiyah for Reb Zera. The Rabbanon said in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah and Reb Zera, this teretz that it's machlokes and hoyel. Rabbi Yirmiyah kibla. Rabbi Yirmiyah was makabel. Reb Zera like kibla. Reb Zera was not makabel. So I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah Reb Zera. Milsa de koshalon, something that's been difficult to us. To ask you kama shani, b'may pligi. And it's for many years we're trying to figure out what they're arguing. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Hashta Amruah Mishmei de Gavarabba, the name of Rami Bar Chama, was saying a big thing that is totally in Hayel. You should be mekabel. So it's a way of explaining a machlekes that we never understood. So Amalei, so Rabbi Zera retorted to Rabbi Yirmiyah, Hechi Kabla. How can I be mekabel? The Tanina, Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, Lidvarecha, according to your words. According to your words, Rabbi Yeshua told Rabbi Eliezer, according to your words, that you're baking, you're baking on Yontif for a tircha on Yontif for challah, which was not necessary. Again, you're baking challah. This challah you can't eat. So how in the world can you tell me that it's a good teretz? And Rabbi Eliezer remained silent. The Isa, and if he held of Hoyel, Leimalei, Rabbi Eliezer should have told him, in other words, there's a very, very easy way out. This is a brisa that's elaborating upon the dialogue in the Mishnah. What did Rabbi Eliezer allow you to do? He allowed you to bake on Yontif something that has no shaykhus to Yontif, a tummy tikachala which you're going to have to burn. What right did you have to do it? That's what Rabbi Yeshua retorted to him. If Rabbi Yeshua said, separate the dough, let it become chametz. That's all he said. If Rabbi Eliezer held of Hoyel, he had a very good answer to Rabbi Yeshua, and he shouldn't remain silent. What could he say to Rabbi Yeshua? Yeshua, you're telling me I'm being matriach and yantif? Hoyel, since what? I could have baked each and every one separately and taken off a little bit from each one. Who I did, I can go ahead and take off the one from the other 10, right? That's what we're saying. The hoyel was, since I could have baked them separately and taken off a little bit, so there's no tircha there. Since there's no tircha there, even though over here there's a tircha, why? Because there's one whole one that I baked that I have no shaykhs to. But Rabbi Eliezer didn't say that. Since he didn't say that, said Rabbi Zera, how can I makabel Rami Bar Chomi's hesber to the machlokes and say it's contingent upon hoyel? He had a way of explaining it. Says Rabbi Eliezer, we're going to say hoyel. That would explain why Rabbi Eliezer will allow you to go ahead and bake it separately, even though you're being matriach for that one. When Rabbi Yeshua attacked him for that one, he didn't say anything. But he should have told him, hoyel, I could have taken off a little bit from each and every one, or then I could take a separate one. Since Rabbi Eliezer did not say that, it must be hoyel is not the hesber. And therefore, he was not makabel from Rabbi Chama, and that's what he retorted to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Now, Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah goes back and speaks to Rabbi Zera, that Rabbi Eliezer remained silent. And that's a raya that he didn't hold up hoyel. Hadid Tanina Bebraisa. That we learned in a Braisa. Amalei Rabbi Eliezer, he said Rabbi Eliezer to Rabbi Yeshua, Lidvarecha, that you hold, that you allow it to become chametz and no problem. Are you over mishum bayira bayimatza? He's over and bayira bayimatza. This shasik lay, and he remained silent. Fellas, what did he say to him? Rabbi Yeshua says you're going to go ahead, separate dough, bake matzah, let the dough become chametz. Rabbi Yeshua did not say anything. Look back at our Mishnah. Look back at the Mishnah. Look at the back of Memvav on the place at the top. What does the Mishnah tell you? Says Rabbi Yeshua, Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Lo yizehu chamesh shem usaran lav bayira bayimatzeh. Is that an answer to the question that this is not, it's not yours? So he remained silent in the Brisa. You know why? Because in the Mishnah he opened his mouth and he told him the answer. So his silence can't be taken to acquiesce to the kasha, right? In the Mishnah, he clearly tells you, you know what? This is not Bayiro, Bayimatzah problem. It's not mine. It's not mine. So in the Mishnah, he does answer. In the Brisa, he doesn't. So Mimela, when Rabbi Eliezer in the Brisa did not say anything to Rabbi Yeshua, Ken Zayin, he took a hold of oil. And that they didn't say anything is Mavur in the Sugya. It's a beautiful teretz. Says the Gemara. Amalei says Rabbi Yirmiyah to Rabbi Zera, that he was quiet. As a riot that Rabbi Eliezer acquiesced to Rabbi Yeshua and did not hold of oil. And you're going to tell me Hachanami over here that Rabbi Yeshua did not say anything back to him. What are you talking about? He answered him in the Mishnah. Hachanami by Rabbi Eliezer. He was quiet in the Mishnah and he didn't say anything about Hayel. And in a different brisa, he went ahead, in a different sugya, he answered him. So Ken Zayin, that Ein Achinami, machloikis between Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua isn't Hayel. Concludes the Gemara Tanya, Rabbi Yomi halacha Rabbi Eliezer. The halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. Rashi brings this on the Yomi base. This is what you should do. Go ahead, you bake it. It's not, no chametz problem anymore. You separate the challah, and then you go ahead and burn it on Motzei Yontif. You go ahead, you keep the challah that was mufresh, you keep it in cold water. The whole time it's in the cold water, it's not going to go ahead and ferment. The kama shir isa, what's the shir of isa that a woman can work with? Again, we said the shir that you work with your hands to go ahead, and as long as you're working with your hands, you don't have anything to worry about. What's that shir? The kama shir isa. What? Yes? Rabbi Shmuel Benoi, Shal Rabbi Yochanan and Breiko Aimer, the chitin, the share of wheat is kavin, right? Sarin kavim is 2 kavim. Sa'irin shleish is 3. So it seems that wheat becomes leaven quicker than barley, because by wheat a woman can only beat 2 kavim, whereas a kavim is 24 eggs, and by barley 2 to 3 guys kavim. Switch it around and say that barley is 2 and wheat is 3. He said 2 to 3, right? The chitin shleishes kavin u'b'soirin abar kavin 3 to 4. How do you explain the difference? One he says 2 to 3, one he says 3 to 4. Like kasha, 3 to 4 is speaking about very poor quality wheat. If it's very poor quality, then 3 to 4. If it's good quality, it's 2 to 3. If it's good quality, it'll get leavened quicker. Amra Papa Shmami, no, we hear from here. Guys, 2 to 3 versus 3 to 4. Garinin chite chasichsa, wheat seeds of poor quality, mechita ma'alyasa, tfei midgarinin sare chasicha, misare ma'alyasa. The 2 to 3 fellas by wheat is a difference of a third. 3 to 4 by sa'irin is a difference of a quarter. So when it comes to business, mekach u'memkar, you have to realize that the loss by wheat is a bigger loss. You lose a third in terms of quality, and the loss by barley is only a quarter. So the ilu hasam tilsa over there, 2 to 3 is a third by wheat. Vahacha revia by sa'irin is 3 to 4 is a quarter. Amarav kava miligna, a kav from a place called Ligna, the Pischa. That's the amount for Pesach. So Pashtus, he is arguing Rav Tanahu Polig. He's arguing on the sheet that we just said before. One said 2, one said 3, right? Here he's saying 1 kav. There's only 1 kav you could work with. So he's obviously arguing. And that kav is linear chala on the base. What does that mean? Chameshis v'chein l'chala. 1 second. V'tanan, we have a mishnah. Chameshis revoyin kemach v'oid chayav b'chala. What's the shir of chala? 1 1/4 kav. You're telling me a woman can work with 1 kav of wheat. In chala also, the share of chala is 1 kav. Chamesh revoyin, 5 quarters is 1 1/4. So why do you tell me 1? It's really 1 1/4. So it says Hachi Kamar Kavim Lugna Nami Ahashiyurikoi. 1 kav from this place was of such superior quality, it was equal to 1 1/4 of another place. Amr Yosef Hani Nashi Didan, our women Noig Lemeifa Kapisa Kapisa Lepischa. They would go ahead and they would work 3/4 of a kav, not like a kav and not 2 kavim. They would go 3/4 of a kav. In other words, they're being machmir, correct? They're being machmir by going ahead and working on a less of an amount. So that'll ensure that they're constantly kneading the dough, beating the dough, rolling the dough, that it wouldn't come to chametz. Amalei Abaye, my daitcha lechumra. Your das is a chumra that they could have worked with the larger share of a kav, and they're only working with a kapisa, which is 3/4. Chumra diaslei kulahu. It's a chumra that will come to a kula. The kamafkale mechala, because chali only chayev 1 according from that place malugna, or 1 1/4. But by working with 3/4, you're patering from chala. So Amalei, so he told Abaya, Rabbi Yosef told Abaya, the Avdan Rebbe Eliezer. They would do like Rebbe Eliezer. It's not in the Mishnah. Rebbe Eliezer Omer Haroida v'noisen l'sal. Someone who takes down the matzah or the challah. They used to make pita bread, guys. They would adhere it to the walls of the ovens. That's the lashon of haroida, ridias hapas, taking it down from the oven. Roida means to be down. They would take it off the wall. Sal mitzar from the challah. The sal would go ahead and be mitzaref ifrachi of challah. So it's very geshmak, guys. Here's what it's saying. When they would work with the dough, you're right. At that point in time, they didn't have the shir challah. But after it's in the oven and they put it in a basket, it certainly did have the shir challah. And they would take off the challah after the afiyah, not in the hafrosh of challah from the dough, like we do. Hafrosh of challah min ha'isa. But in fact, they would go ahead and take it off after it's baked, after you had the share. You had a kav and a quarter of matzah or challah in this basket, and then you would go ahead and separate it. So the women it wasn't a kula. What? I guess so. I guess you will make a bracha mafish min isa, right? Right. Probably.
They have to do it. Why did they have to do it?
Yeah, you have to be mafish challah.
What about if you make less than a share?
No, if you're less than a share, you don't have to.
So
but we're trying to say what you're not going to do something to avoid something. So you're working with 3/4 of a kav, which is a nice thing when it comes to what? To matzah, but it's not a good thing when it comes to challah.
But if you want to avoid it, you can do that.
What?
If you avoid giving away challah, you could do it this way and then never give away challah.
Again, people want to do mitzvahs, People want to do mitzvahs. So you don't want to, in other words, you're doing one mitzvah to avoid another mitzvah, Aryeh. You're doing one mitzvah that you're being machmir. You could have worked with larger and been yaitza both. So I'm working with less to be,
Right.
So you're yaitza both now. You're yaitza both.
But that's what an eitzah with the tumadik flour.
This man has everything's tumadik.
No, when we were talking about how to get rid of challah if it's tummy, the chatchila don't do a shear that it won't be, and you won't have to worry about giving away challah.
Again, but
the whole thing.
You don't avoid the mitzvah of afrashas challah. It's a mitzvah of afrashas challah.
You had the case of tummy.
Again, and you can drink less the whole day and not make a bracha chroinah. You can wait in between. You can eat a little bit. You can be like a wine to make one bracha at the beginning of the year, one at the end of the year, or you can be like a normal person and make a bracha here. And I'm saying we could do that, but you're not. This is not hefgevelt. We want to be yaitz in the mitzvah. We want to do mitzvahs.
But when you needed an eitzah for the tamatika flour, we're good eitzah.
That's not an eitzah. You have to be mafish challah. You have to be mafish challah. And again, according to Rebbe Eliezer, so Aryeh, according to you, you're going to go through the whole process for a few matzahs. Think about it. It's not much. You're going to go make a few matzahs. They're making matzah now. Okay, anyway. Rebbe Eliezer, you give him the sal, you're good. Rebbe Yehuda Mishmuel, Allah Rebbe Eliezer. The Allah, in fact, is like Rebbe Eliezer. Allah is like Rebbe Eliezer. Amalei v'ha'itmar lo Amr Yeshua ben Levi le'shonel kikroi shel Bavel shenoichesu bezu. They were long. They would kiss each other. So therefore, if you put them in the basket, they're considered like one. Aval ka'achin, and one's long and one's short. They're not uniform and touching each other. Like says even if they're small and short, the halacha is that if they're in the basket, you can go ahead and take off challah. Boy Rav Yirmiyah, tavla she'en vazvazim. You have a board, and the dough is on the board, but doesn't have a rim. So it's in the airspace, but it's not contained within. It can come out. Mahu toich klibin. You need a toich. You need it to be within for haleka. A dilma avir klibin in va'ika. Maybe you need the airspace, and it is. So the Gemara says teku. Tanya Rebbe Eliezer Omer Hasal mitzarfan. The sal brings them all together. Rebbe Yeshua Omer Tana mitzarfan. The Tana brings them all together. Vichi of challah. Shimon Omer Kikrei shel Babel shenoichazu bezu mitzarfos. The ones that only if they're touching each other would be mitzarf. Take a quick look at this Rashi. Amalek Rebbe Eliezer. Look at the Rashi. Amalek Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer Svirle. The sal mitzarfan lechala la'achar fiyasan. The sal. The basket combines them all together l'chali after they're baked. Idna kaimalon Rebbe Eliezer. Guys, bisman hazeh, where everyone is tamei tumis meis, this Mishnah is halach l'maisa. Any challah that you're going to do is tamei. So during the year, it's not a problem. You just let it become chametz, you cut it, and you burn it. But on Pesach, you're going to make matzah. So we don't bake matzah, but they used to bake matzah on Pesach all the time. So what would you do? You would do like Rebbe Eliezer. Ve'idna kaimon Rebbe Eliezer, b'chala shalar, the ain't sarfim kach and b'yantif. You can't burn it on yantif. To keep them around, it's not possible. Shame, and if you call the shem chala, asala faisa, it's also to bake. The lavla achilahu and it's tircha yantif. V'loy karina lo shem ela oisa. You didn't call a shem challah on it when it was dough. Ela oisa charara katana. You make a small cake. Ela gedoyla, right? Ela oisa charara katana. One small one. It's the gedoyla next to a big one. V'oif v'shteyem, and you bake them together. You right there, and when you take them down from the oven, nice and l'kli, you put it in a kli. For whom it's sarfam, the kli would put it together. For noitel katana, you would then take the small challah, the koyre shem, you would call the shem on it. Umevarach, and you make a bracha. Umatzna'iyah, and you would put it away. For sarfam mishetepshach, and you burn it mitzvah yontif. Oilamacho the next day. V'chein haralanu Rabbi Yaakov ben Yakar. So again, in the time of Rashi, Rabbi Eliezer was halach lamaisa. That's what they did. That's what they did.
Ladies, just had a question from before. Rabbi Yirmiyah, who says that you take the challah and you put it in cold water so it should rise.
Ben
then you burn it.
Ben Beseira.
Right. So my question is, why isn't that muktzah? Since you the handling of that, you're not allowed to. How's he allowed to put it in the cold water? I understand why he's doing it, but on Yontif to do that, unlike the other ones with Ahayil, you're going ahead and you're combining it. You're working with it to so you're avoiding any kind of problem. But here you're separating it on its own. You put it in cold. Why isn't that muktzah? How are you allowed to do that?
You're allowed to work the dough. The dough is not muktzah hesh. You weren't makatza das on it.
But it's tummy. It's tummy dikko dough.
You weren't but you're allowed to bake on yontif. You weren't makatza das from the dough. You're allowed to bake on yontif, and you're allowed to eat tummy. The tummy problem is only vis-a-vis the kayin. You could eat chulin tumah. We eat chulin tumah all the time. It's not a problem.
Okay.
It's not a problem. You're not makatza das from it. Says the Mishnah.
Okay. Rabbi Stern,
yeah.
If the freezers and starve to make for challah, you put all the challahs in the freezer. If you be starved to take challah.
Again, this is all a moot point for us. No one's baking challah on Pesach. Every woman separates challah from challah. They don't put it in a basket, right? They don't do that. They separate challah. They have the shear. If they have the shear, they separate challah. They put it in the freezer and they burn it.
If someone forgot to take challah, the freezer is masarif to all the challahs that you could take challah afterwards.
If you forgot to take challah, again, you could take challah from the freezer. Why don't you just bake it?
No, you put them all together. No, if you forgot, you bake them already. You got to put them all in the basket. You put it in the freezer. It works like
L'chayra, you could do that. I mean, I don't know I don't know if you need the freezer. After you bake, you have a bunch of dough. You bake it. I don't know. I don't know if a freezer will be mitzaref. I don't know that.
No, you have a bunch of challahs in front of you.
No, I don't know that. Again, I don't know. You have a bunch of dough. I don't know if it's mitzaref. I'm not sure.
It is. I heard that shadow once.
Rabbi Gamliel Omer, shalosh nashim lashos ke'achas. 3 women can work at the same time. V'oifis b'taner echad zu achazu. So listen to this. 3 women begin at 10 a.m. working what? The challah. This is Pesach. They're beating the dough. There's 3 steps. Kneading it, arranging it, and baking it. 3 steps. Kneading it, arranging it, and baking it. They all begin at the same time. Now, even though the one who finished, you're going to have A, B, and C, by the time C gets to it, it's going to be a little while. Nonetheless, says Gamliel, in that time span, it's not going to become chametz. So they can all begin simultaneously. Rabbi Gamliel, shalosh nashim lashos ka'achas v'oifis b'taner achas zu achazu. V'chachamim ma'imrim shalosh nashim oiskis b'batzei ka'achas. They can do it together, but they cannot. They have to do it one after the other. Meaning, achas lasha, one needs, and then v'achas orchis v'achas oife. We're going to see what it means in the brisa. When one needs, the other one doesn't do anything. As soon as one finishes kneading and begins to arrange it, the other one begins to knead it. As soon as the one bakes it, the other one then begins to arrange it, and the third one begins to knead. So they're all doing separate processes at a different time, and by this it'll guarantee it won't come to chametz. That's what it's going to say in the brisa. The brisa will explain the Mishnah. Rekiva argues on Rabbi Gamliel, like kol hanoshim, like kol ha'etzim, like kol ha'tanurim shavin. Not all women, not all wood Not all stoves are equal. Zeh klal tafich tiltem b'tzainen. If it begins to rise, throw it into cold water. Throw it into cold water. Tarabanan. So this is the Shitas Chachamim. The Bryce is elaborating. Lasha, you need himikatefes, and then she begins to arrange. The chaversa lasha, and then number 2 begins to knead. Tachteha. Mikatefes, and when she begins to, the second one begins to go ahead, what? Knead. No, after she finishes kneading the first one, he oifa, she bakes the chaver to mikatefes, and this tachteha. And the second one now begins to arrange. Hashlishas lasha, and the third one now begins to knead. So you get the order, 3, 2, 1. Oifahi, lasha. Once she bakes, she begins to knead. The chaver to oifa tachteha, and number 2 now bakes. The hashlishas mikatefes, and number 3 goes ahead and begins to arrange. The chazer is chalila, and this continues the cycle. So you all guarantee that what it will never come to chametz. This is a guarantee it will never come to chametz. Kol zman she'asekes bebatzek. The whole time she's being busy in the dough, ain't a bullet dechimas. Rabbi Akiva, I'm like anashid. Not all women are equal. Tanya, Rabbi Akiva, the nanti lifnei Rabbi Gamliel. L'madenu Rabbeinu b'nashim svisais. No, says Rabbi Akiva. You say that all 3 women can work at the same time. 1 second. Teach us, Rabbi. Nashim zvisais. By nashim shenas zvisais. Be'etzim lachin, moist wood. By be'etzim yaveshim. B'tanu chama hot oven. Or b'tanu tzayin. In other words, how can you? Not everyone's equal. So Amali, we don't have a problem. They could all begin at the same time because you could always go ahead, put a little cold water on it to stop the process. Okay, let's finish the daf. We had this earlier. We spoke it out. Sior means inedible. It's chametz nuksha. It's inedible. What state is inedible? There's 3 states. Face is pale, the beginning of antennas, and a lot of antennas, a lot of sedakim. Everyone holds the last one when there's a lot of sedakim, it's chametz, it gets a chi of kares. That's chametz gomer. Machloikis whether the second one, antennas, is a chi of or not. Machloikis whether the second one is a chi of or not. Rabbi Meir says yes, a chi of kares. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Sior, according to Rabbi Meir, is the beginning of the process. You can't eat it. And you're chayiv, but no malchus. Rabbi Meir says it's mutter completely. Rabbi Yehuda says mutter completely. Sior, yisaref. What? Just right, I'll call it back right. Sior yisaref. Sior you burn. Va'oichlei pata. And anyone who eats it is pata. Siduk yisaref. Once it gets to the level of siduk, you burn it. Va'oichlei chayiv kares. Is a sior, and again, this is not sa'ar. This is sior. Kikarni chagovim, like the antennas of a grasshopper. Siduk, shenis arvu sedakim. If it's cracked, that is cracked, the level of crack. You see many cracks in it. Zebazet, what intertwining. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Whether it's antennas, a little 2 or a lot, yichayv kares. There is a sior, according to that opinion. Kol shechsifu ponav. His face is pale. If you scare him, his hair stands up. We're going to elaborate who the sheet of the Chacham is. It's going to be Reb Meir. Ezo Sior. What's stage number 1? You're scared. Siduk, the second level, is Kekane Chagavim. The Reb Meir. The Chacham Moimim. Ezo Sior. Kekane Chagavim. Sior is not white, pale face. Siduk is antennas. Siduk, Shinis Arvus, Sedakim Zebezeh. So I can say the Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Meir the seer of that Rabbi Meir, that Rabbi Yehuda says, like Chagavim, that you would be pata from, he holds Yichayev Kares from. Amarav, in my time, the Rabbi Meir, what's the reason that if you have 2 antennas, that Yichayev Kares? Because Ein Lechol Kasadik v'Sadik Mamaila, there's no dough that has cracks above. That doesn't have many cracks below the line where you don't see it. And therefore, Rabbi says you be chayv kares. Wish everyone a good Shabbos. We'll see you Be'ez Hashem on